What's up, guys? It's Spunkify here for League Top 10, and today I'm going to be talking about Volibear, the new 6300 IP and 975 RP champion by Riot for League of Legends. And yeah, he is a tanky bear. It's actually pretty funny that this champion finally made it into the League of Legends, simply because it's been talked about since beta like 3 years ago about bringing an armor bear. But that's pretty crazy. Anyways, Volibear is a melee tanky type champion, and there has been quite a heated discussion about him on the forums and in the community, whether he is underpowered, whether he is overpowered, and I'm here today to give you my thoughts on this. And it's a little bit of both. I feel that he is somewhat overpowered in areas and somewhat underpowered in others, and I'll explain that in just a little bit. So first of all, what role does he fulfill? Let me define that. He, in my opinion, best is a tanky, or a tank rather, that does decent damage, does pretty decent damage. I wouldn't say he's tanky DPS. Like, I wouldn't say you build him with the mindset of going like a brutalizer or going like Garen, where it's immediately Warmogs, brutalizer, Atmas. I feel like he is tanky type champion, similar to like a Mumu or Malphite or a Singe, who also does decent damage, sustained decent damage with some burst. That's what I feel he is. I feel he's primarily a tank, and I feel that when you're talking like masteries, if you want to talk about that this early, mastery wise, going down the tank tree for me is much more beneficial than going down the offensive tree, I have found. So getting that extra HP, which allows him to benefit off of his W, which is his main nuke, his single target nuke, definitely gives him a lot more punch and a lot more sustainability, both in lane and in team fights. So that role I feel he is best fulfilling at is the tank role. Now, why do people think he is underpowered or overpowered? This is something that has really got people sparked and heated in discussion, and in my opinion, he is a little bit of both. Now, when you're talking about underpowered we should first talk about why people think and why I think he's somewhat overpowered. In small skirmishes, let's say 1v1, 2v2, and even 3v3, there is not a lot of CC, and especially early game, not a lot of big burst damage that you can do to Volibear. If he gets some decent HP early on, like gets part of his or half of his Warmogs, which I think is a really key item on him, then he is extremely tanky, innately tanky, and he can really survive those team fights, survive those little skirmishes, and do tons of damage with his Q, W, and E combo. Now, also, because of the lack of CC, he also can benefit the most from his R, which allows him to chain lightning, essentially, to different targets around the area, allowing him to spread his damage out even further in prolonged team fights. I think it's like 12 seconds that lasts, which is pretty insane. It's got a long reach and really gives him a nice bonus AoE effect to all of his base attacks. So, because of the fact that his passive heals him for a lot of his HP, this makes him overpowered in small team fights, because you cannot easily burst him down after he triggers his passive when there's only one or two people and you may not have an ignite of, or you just may not have the burst damage to get past that passive healing, and it ends up being a losing fight for the enemy. But when you transition this to late game and transition this to large team fights, his passive almost becomes non-existent, because of the simple fact that you'll get bursted down past your passive without it even triggering the full amount. You may get like 1 or 2 ticks off of it, and that's it. It's a small heal, and that's all you got off of it. And so this turns into like a Mundo style ultimate, where it's really, really strong, almost borderline OP in small fights, but then starts to really taper off in large team fights, especially as the fight goes, or as the game goes on and on and on, because people get more items, and that the passive just keeps diminishing. Ideally, you would want to have heal less early game and heal more late game, so you feel like it scales up rather than it scales down, and it just keeps in line with a strong passive. Now, additionally, I want to talk about his ultimate, which I feel his ultimate is somewhat overpowered again in small fights and underpowered in large team fights. Again, this is going back to CC and the fact that he can just auto attack almost freely if he gets the chance, and if he's paired up with someone like Udyr or some other person like Lee Sin or Riven, who has a chainable CC or a chainable slow something about them that allows them to stick to the target and allows Volibear to stick to the target and use his Q and E much more effectively without having to constantly run after someone. With that in mind, when you do that and you have your ultimate activated, those 12 seconds are like the 12 seconds of heaven. You can do so much damage with that bonus damage to your auto attacks and with the increased attack speed from your W that it just makes him really, really strong in those fights. But when, again, you transition that to late game into large team fights, if all this random AoE CC is going off, you have Alistar headbutting, pulverizing, you're trying to get to the squishy targets, you're trying to chain people up, because Volibear doesn't have a lot of CC. He's more, single target, immense pressure, and, just great initiation with Q. But he doesn't have a ton of CC. He just likes to kind of beat on one target, a special, and just kind of get people to focus him because he's had so much HP and he's beating the crap out of this one target. So with all that AoE going off and all the CC, exhaust, what have you, you're not really getting in all the auto attacks that you would really want with your ultimate, which makes it kind of, again, trail off in large team fights. So I feel like he is really good early game, like extremely good. His W is overpowered early game. He is decent, in generally good in mid game, especially if he gets some decent farm or if he gets some early kills. He is just as good, if not better, mid game. And then he just kind of like falls off the face of the earth late game because of, the fact that people will start focusing him, people are going to chain him up. And really, I found as the week went on and I played Volibear, and people were just making sure to save their CC for me. And I really felt like, other than getting my one Q off or like my one E off, maybe my W on a single target, I didn't get to get the auto attacks in with my ultimate. I felt like my ultimate was wasted in those large team fights. And a lot of times I didn't feel like I got many attacks off at all with it, really got to feel the benefit of it. So I feel like it could be increased a little bit in damage, I'd say, just because of the fact that late game, not so much. Maybe decrease the actual damage it does early game, increase it late game. Just to kind of bring that OP-ness from early game and kind of just slide it alongside and put it towards late game so that it's balanced overall. Because the curve is not even right now. It's almost like a slide. He starts out really high, and he kind of does this little dip thing, and then he just kind of starts bottoming out as the game goes on. Now, overall, though, I feel he's a very fun champion to play. I've played him solo top. I go Ghost Exhaust so that I can, again, stick with the target. And Ghost plus your Q is just insane. You can catch pretty much almost anyone except for like Kennen and people with very quick, spammable gap distance creators. And then I also like to jungle with him because the E, the second portion of the E, which fears minions, it's okay in lane. It can help you disrupt the minions at your tower so they don't attack it. But in the jungle, it's super strong because you can just fear the minions, and the fear lasts longer than shackle boxes, and then you could just, AoE them down and do your damage. And he's not the fastest jungler, but he doesn't take a lot of damage from the jungle simply because of spammable E with blue buff and such. You just keep spamming that and keep the minions disrupted so that you don't have to take as much damage. Now, the way I do runes, masteries, and items are as follows. For runes, I go armor penetration red, flat armor yellow, and magic resistance per level blue. Then for my quintessences, my purples, I go attack speed, flat attack speed. So that gives me a nice boost in my attack speed for my W. It gives me some increased tankiness built into the yellow and the blues for both MR and for armor. Again, that really kind of helps me later game in the late game because with Volibear, you're not building a lot of resistances, you're building a lot of HP items. So having the increased magic resistance late game kind of makes up for the fact that you have a lot of HP, but not a lot of resistances. Now, when it comes to masteries, I'm just pretty much straight down the defensive tree, taking, decrease in damage, increase in movement speed, all that standard stuff. I do take the 1 point in offensive for the increased ghost and the benefited exhaust. And then if I'm jungling, I'll, of course, take some out of the defensive tree and put it into utility. That really, I feel, is the best way. I did try playing him in the offensive tree. It didn't really work out for me that much better, and I really felt that the increased tankiness and especially the HP for the W is where it's at for Volibear. Now, as items goes, going Atmogs, Warmogs, just Warmogs and Atmos and Paler, going Trinity Force, Wits In, Frozen Heart, and Wriggles. If you're going to solo top or jungle, I feel Wriggles is a good choice for both. I feel those items are really key core items that you could do extremely well with. The increase in attack speed late game can really help you with, of course, your W getting out very quickly. The Trinity Force will give you a on-hit slow, as well as making your W godly with the effects of Sheen. And then, of course, this attack speed critical strike. Just it's overall obviously a good item for him. Really good item. Is also the Frozen Heart. It gives you that tankiness and allows you to slow down the attack speed of other people around you. And this allows him to be that big, muscly, defensive tank that gets in there and just kind of, flips tables essentially. So I feel like those items are key on him. If you're worried about magic resistance, Wits In, like I said, is a good item. You can also go like Banshee's Veil or just GA at that point, late game. But early game, Atmogs, Warmogs and Atmos Impaler, really, really key. I feel like you should go Warmogs, Frozen Heart, Atmos, and that's going to be your base items to get. And from there, you can kind of just obviously differentiate based off of who you're against. So that's been my impressions of Volibear here. Great champion. I feel they just need to tweak it so that he is not so strong early game, but does not fall off so much late game. Just kind of move those numbers around, make his passive and his W weaker early game, but make everything scale up better late game, especially in circumstances where you're up against a team with a lot of CC. That way he doesn't feel like he's worthless outside of his W late game. And I feel like he would be in a great spot. I feel like with those changes, he would be viable in all circumstances, and really a fun champion to play if that happens. So guys, let me know your personal thoughts on Volibear. Let me know what you thought of my thoughts. If you guys have any additional questions or concerns, comments, etc., just leave them down below. If you guys enjoyed the video, of course, thumbs it up. It always helps. It always keeps the videos flowing here. And yeah, this is Spunkify out. Hope you enjoyed it. See you guys later.
An ally has been slain. An enemy